Welcome to the Simple Homeschool Organization Challenge. My name is Susan. I am so excited you're here with me. And I have an education background, and I have been homeschooling for this will be my 15th year coming up. But like I said, I had a teaching background, and I remember even though I taught in the classroom, I wondered when I first started homeschooling, am I doing enough for my kids? Do I need to do more? What should school look like? I mean, I know what it looks like in the classroom, but should it look the same for us homeschooling? I don't think it should, but I'm not really sure. So in the beginning years, it was kind of figuring things out. And the good news is every homeschool looks different because every family is different. Every family has different needs. So today we are going to work on our homeschool routine and schedule, and it's going to work for your family. You are going to figure out what the needs of your family are and how homeschool is going to fit into all of that for your family, because everyone is unique. So let's first start by talking about why organizing your homeschool is important. And I'm going to read, now this isn't referring to homeschool, but this is just health benefits when you're organized. So one thing, if you're organized, it can boost your energy. According to WebMed, taking a few minutes to organize your desk or file papers that have been stacking up can give you energy for the rest of the day. Another thing, it can lead to better eating habits. This kind of surprised me. A study from Psychological Science found that being organized can actually have a positive impact on what you eat. The study found that people who worked in a neat space were 2 times as likely to pick up an apple instead of a chocolate bar when compared with those working in a messy space. And when your kitchen is clean, you tend to eat out less. And you tend to eat less calories, of course, when you eat at home compared to eating out. Another thing, it can improve your sleeping habits. If you have clutter in your bedroom, it can cause stress, even if you don't realize it, and can cause you to lose sleep. And having an organized space can reduce stress, depression, and anxiety. Studies have found that people with cluttered homes or unfinished projects were more depressed, fatigued, and had higher cortisol levels, which is a stress hormone, than people with organized homes. And the last one I'm going to talk about, there's more, but I'm just going to do one more. Having an organized space will improve productivity and saves time. Clutter is visually distracting and can cause you to lose concentration. When you're disorganized, it takes you longer to find the things that you need. So even though this is just in general, if you are organized or not, we can apply this to our homeschools also. And of course, clutter makes it harder to focus and have a clear mind. And when you're organized, you feel like you're in more of control. So now think about your kids. Every child is different. Some kids need more organization and some need a little bit less. But you may not even realize how it's impacting your kids when you're not organized. So now we all struggle with organization in some way. We all have a pile of papers that we haven't got to. That's not what I'm talking about. But we can all make progress from wherever we are. I don't want you to feel discouraged. I want you to feel like I can do this. Now, God is a God of order, and we were created in His image, so we can create order in our homes. And I'm not talking about like perfect Pinterest house or someone can eat off my floor. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about we're going to have an organization to our day. So today we're just going to focus on our homeschool day and how we can structure it and organize it to work with your family. So I am going to recommend that, okay, I know some people recommend that you organize your day in time segments. So they say from 9 to 9:15, we're going to do our Bible time. From 9:15 to 9:30, we're going to do reading. From 9:30 to 9:45, we're going to do math. And then from 9:45 to 10, we're going to take a 15-minute break. Now, if you have been homeschooling for any amount of time, you know that your toddler interrupts your school time. Maybe your baby's crying because they're hungry or they're teething. Maybe you have a sick child, or maybe your neighbor needs something. It might be an emergency, or they just need help with something. And now let's say you have that schedule from 9 to 9:15 and you get your first interruption. And then it is going to throw off your entire day, and you're going to feel frustrated and discouraged and like, oh my gosh, it's the beginning of the day and already we've had this interruption. Now my whole day is thrown off. That's why I recommend you don't do it that way. If you like to do time blocks, what I would recommend is figure out how much time you're going to take for each subject. Maybe 15 minutes if your kids are little, maybe 30, maybe 45 minutes if they're a little bit older. You decide the time. And then let's say you have little ones and you're doing 15 minutes of reading and the baby is crying and needs to eat. So you need to feed the baby and stop reading with your kids. So let's say you've been reading for 5 minutes, baby interrupts, you take care of the baby, and then you go back to reading for that last 10 minutes. That would be one way to do it. If you like the time blocks. What I prefer is a routine. Now a routine, it's not determined by time at all. So for example, our morning routine, kids wake up in the morning, they eat breakfast, they get dressed, they brush their teeth, they make their bed, they start school. Morning routine. Doesn't matter if we start at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, because maybe you had a really rough night and you just want to sleep in, or maybe your kids are sick and they need to sleep in and you're just not ready for the day, maybe at 8 o'clock one day, and that's when you usually start. But if you have a routine, it does not matter when you start. You just follow your routine as you go through your day. And sometimes your routine might get messed up a little bit, but that's okay. That is life. And so don't get discouraged if you can't stay on top of everything the same way you do all the time. So just allow yourself some flexibility and some fluctuations. Okay, now our routine now is a lot different than it was when my kids were little. I now have 3 kids who have graduated from homeschool, and I have one in 8th grade. So of course, our school day looks a lot different than it did when the kids were little. So I'm going to talk about how our routine has changed a little bit. It hasn't been real drastic, but it does change as your kids grow. So I'm going to give you some examples. So let's start with our routine in our earlier years. So we would wake up, eat breakfast, brush our teeth, get dressed, and then we would start our school day. We would have a Bible time together, the beginning of our school day, and then the kids would begin working on their work. Now, when they were little, I would work individually with my different kids. My 3 oldest kids, they are very close in age. So I had a kindergartner, 1st grader, and 2nd grader all at the same time. So there were a lot of subjects that we just combined together, but they had their own reading and math, except for my daughters. My second daughter was advanced for her age, so she would just work at the same level as her older sister. So they worked on the same reading and math for a while, and then I just had my youngest on a different one. Then we did science and history, art, that type of thing, all together as a group. But as they started their individual work, I would kind of get them started working, and then if they needed help or I needed to teach a lesson, I would just work individually with those kids while the other ones were working independently. We typically would do school for 1 to 2 hours a day, and then we would be finished for the day. And typically around noon we would have lunch, and after school, my kids all had chores to do, even at a very young age. So they had schoolwork, they had chores, and then they had free time. So after they were finished with their chores, they were free to play outside. We might go on nature walks, we might go to the library, go to the park, play with friends, take classes, kind of whatever we chose to do in the afternoon. Now, as my kids grew older, of course, their school time grew longer. As they grew older, they continued to start school around 9 o'clock. They worked on the subjects in any order that they wanted to, except for those subjects that we met together as a group, and that was based on my schedule. So when I was available, we would work on those group subjects. Other times when they were working independently, they could choose what subjects they worked on when, as long as they got finished. I really didn't care what order they did it in. Okay, and they always would take a lunch break around noon, and then they would either finish their homework or schoolwork and chores, and then they had free time. So it's kind of the same routine. We get up in the morning, we get moving, then we do our schoolwork, we have a lunch break, then we either do chores, finish schoolwork, and then free time. So our schedule, our routine pretty much has stayed pretty consistent throughout. It's just a few tweaks here and there. And of course, school time became longer as they became older. Now, let's talk about when I worked full-time while homeschooling. At one time, it was about 7 years, I had a home daycare that I ran in my home while I homeschooled my kids. So I had up to 8 kids in my house a day, and it was challenging at times, but it worked. So what our routine looked like then is my kids still, same thing, get up in the morning, get ready, start their school around 9 o'clock. And when I did home daycare, my youngest, he stayed with me and the daycare kids, and then my older 3 kids would go and work on their schoolwork independently. If they had questions, I tried to answer questions if I could, but I wasn't always available to answer questions if they had them. I cared for twins at a time and infants, and you're feeding babies and changing diapers, and sometimes you just don't have time to help with schoolwork at the moment. And I always wanted to be available for my kids when they needed it, but I wasn't always available. So what we would do in that case is, after the daycare kids, they would always nap after lunch. And as they were napping, then I would help my older kids with any questions they had about any of their schoolwork. And we would also work on those group subjects together during that time. So it worked really well, because then we had like a quiet time. All the daycare kids were sleeping. My youngest, when he was a little bit older, I would work on his reading and math during that time. I did try to do reading and math with him when the younger kids were awake, and it just did not work, because they all wanted to see what he was doing. They would all be watching him, and he didn't like that they were all watching him. So it just worked better that we just worked on that specific school time, that reading and math especially during their nap time. That just worked for us. And a lot of you may have younger kids too, and you might have some of the same struggles. Like, what do I do with my younger kids that are constantly interrupting? You can also have activities for them to do at the same time, maybe a table activity that is something special that they don't do on a regular basis, that they could work on while your older student was working on their schoolwork at the table or something. I don't know, you can work it out, and I have confidence in you that you can figure out how to make it work. Okay, and sometimes the younger kids are the school, and maybe you are teaching them life skills and how to care for a child. So think about that too. Little kids are not just an interruption. They can be part of the school day, and just embrace it. Embrace whatever your family looks like, and make it work for you. Okay, so now before you create your routine, it's important to consider a few things first. So here are some questions to think about. First of all, are you part of a co-op? And if you are, what days? Do your kids take lessons or classes? Do your kids participate in sports? When is your best work time? Is it the morning, the afternoon, or even the evening? Some of you may be night owls, and morning is just not a good time for you to start schoolwork. Maybe it's after lunch is your best work time, or maybe it's in the evening. I don't know what your schedule is, what your family is like. So don't think I have to do school in the morning. Think about when is your best time for you and your kids, and do school during that time. Do you have little ones who aren't in school? That's going to really affect your routine. It might really be hard to focus on teaching your kids math when you have little ones constantly interrupting. So you're going to have to think about when are the times when you can really focus and help your kids with the subject that they might need help with. Okay, do you work? And when do you work? How is that going to affect your routine? Does anyone in your family have medical needs? Do your kids need a rest time? Some kids need that rest time and just time on their own for a while. Do you need to figure that into your day? Okay, now you're going to create a weekly or a daily routine. And let's say you have co-op on Mondays. You're not going to be home as much on Monday. Your kids aren't going to have as much time to do schoolwork, so maybe you have a very light academic school day that day, or maybe you just say, we're not doing any other schoolwork on co-op days. All we're going to do is read or do art or music or whatever you choose. So you figure out what is going to work for you. Now, when you are creating your routine, you are going to start when your kids wake up. What do you want your kids to do when they wake up? Do you want them to get dressed? Do you want them to make their bed? Do you want them to eat breakfast? Do you want them to read their Bible? What do you want them to do as soon as they wake up in the morning? Okay, I'm just moving my notes here. Okay, and then you're going to figure out for school time, what do you want your kids to accomplish in a 2 to 3 hour time frame? How long are you going to give your kids for a lunch break? What are they going to do on their lunch break? Some families like to have their kids eat lunch and then do some exercise or run around outside, maybe go for a walk, maybe have a rest time, all that type of thing. So figure out, what do you want it to look like during lunchtime? Do you want your kids to help you make lunch? Clean up lunch. For us, for our lunches, we did sandwiches or leftovers. Once in a while, I may make macaroni and cheese or grilled cheese, something like that. But for the most part, my kids were just responsible for getting their own lunch. Very simple. And then they just put their dishes in the dishwasher when they're finished. And so there wasn't much cleanup, but some people like to cook a full lunch. And so what is that going to look like? What kids are you going to have help you with that? Who's going to help clean up? Think about all those type of things for your routine. And then what choices do your kids have when school is over? You know, maybe you want them to do specific things. Maybe you want them to do their chores and their music practice, their lessons, maybe practice the piano or an instrument they're learning. Or maybe that's when you're going to want to do art or get together with other kids. What do you want them to do? Or do you want to just give them free time and just let them choose what they want to do? I would say the older your kids are, the more freedom you should give them. Okay, now one other thing that I want to talk about is having a routine in blocks throughout the day. So let me give you an example. So let's say you have a morning routine, a school routine, a lunch routine, afternoon routine, and a dinner routine. So you're going to break your day up into those 5 different routines throughout the day. So what I did, and you will get to download these and print these out if you would like. What I did is I created an example. So this is an example for 6th to 8th grade. So morning routine: breakfast, get dressed, brush teeth, make bed, help a younger sibling with maybe breakfast or getting dressed or whatever they need help with. And then school routine would be Bible, math, reading, science, history, writing, art, music, and electives. And then lunch routine. Make lunch, clean the table, play outside or a physical activity, rest time or read. Afternoon routine, finish schoolwork if needed, music lessons, chores, get together with friends, sports, outside, free time, co-op or outside classes. And then dinner routine. Play with siblings, help make dinner, clean up, family time, activities, friends, and games. No, that's just an example. So let's say you had, let's say you had basically the same routine every day of the week. This would work great for that. Now let's say you have every day of your week looks a little bit different, or maybe one day you have co-op and then every other day looks the same. So what you might want to think about is, what is our co-op day going to look like? And then what are our other days going to look like? So you might want to create 2 different ones depending on your day. Now I also have some daily routines that you can create, and I have examples with all of them. I'm not going to read all of them. You can go ahead and read them. And then this is just another same thing, just a different form, whatever one you like the best. This is not to create busy work for you. This is to help you figure out what your routine is going to be weekly or even daily, if you have some days that look a lot different, depending how detailed you like it to be. If you just say, I just want a general outline of my routine, then I would recommend something like this. And then you can put in, like, even your school routine might have co-op in it. If your kids go to co-op, that might be just on one of the days when you do co-op, it just looks different and you already know what it looks like, so you don't want to write it down, and that's fine too. But your homework today is to create a routine on one of these pages. And like I said, if you prefer more details and you want to do more than one page, go ahead. These are to help you, not to make it a burden for you. If you have a different system and maybe you just want to write it out on paper, you can do that also. Whatever works for you. I just created these to help you. If they're not helpful, then just write it down a different way. If you have a different way you prefer, use that. Otherwise, use the sheets that I created to help you out. So once you finish your homework, I would like you to take a picture and post it in our group. And the people who post the most in our group, every time you post, you're going to get your name put in a drawing. And at the end of the week, I am going to pick a name and you are going to win a book. So this book is for kindergarten through 5th graders, and it is going to help you record the books and the different curriculums that your kids use all the way from kindergarten through 5th grade, what you thought of the curriculum. So this, I created this because with me, I tried a lot of different curriculums, and there were some things I liked, some things I didn't like, and then I would switch it. And this is kind of a record of all that. You can rate the curriculum, you can write notes, so then you know, let's say you have a child in kindergarten and you have another one coming up in a couple years that's going to do kindergarten, but you have something you absolutely love or you really didn't care for, then if you write it down, you'll remember it when your next child is ready for kindergarten. You can refer back to the book and see, oh yeah, I used this for them, it worked really well, or oh, that one wasn't so good, so I don't want to use that one again. So it's just a way to have everything in one place instead of in all different places, because I have lesson plan books, but if I ever wanted to look back, I would have to look in all of those lesson plan books to see what I used instead of looking in one book. So that's why I created that book. Now, let's say you have middle school through high schoolers. I have also created a student planner for them that I just published on Amazon last week. So I don't have any copies to show you in front of me, but if you have a middle school through high school student, you will be able to pick. I I design different covers, so you get to pick your favorite one and you can use that for your student if you win the drawing. So something for all age levels. So please post in the group. It not only helps hold you accountable, but it also helps give other people ideas and encouragement. So I'm going to be asking you to post throughout the week. Post if you have any questions. And now just one quick thing. If you are a VIP, we will meet tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern time. And we're going to talk more about your routine. So make sure you have at least a rough draft of your routine, any questions you might have. I'm going to have some hot seats where I have some people come up and you'll be able to ask me questions and I'll answer your questions in live time. And everyone who's listening can also learn from the questions that you ask, because a lot of times we have similar questions anyway. So it really helps everyone involved. And on Wednesday, we are going to talk about organizing your school records, your papers, your lessons, talk about what you should keep, what you should get rid of, and even we're going to go over high school transcripts real quickly. I'm not going to go over like a template for that, but I'm going to tell you what you should be recording that's going to help you with your high school transcripts if that's where you are. Thank you again for joining me, and I can't wait to see your daily routines. See you Wednesday.